Now, moving on to section 2 of the module, this is what we call Who's Who in the Zoo. And again, it's just about educating you of the current landscape that we're in when it comes to third-party providers and what we've come to term as OTAs, the online travel agents. There's a really good article, and so if you look in the workbook and in the content in the module here online, there's an article that was written some time ago around the evolution of online travel. Now, it's a fantastic infographic actually, and there's a lot of detail in it. It talks a lot about travel and online and accommodation, but it gives you, I guess, some historical evolution of where it all came about from. But we really encourage you to explore that, just to bring yourself up to speed. I'll give you a little bit of an overview here today while we're talking about the OTAs, but that is a really good starting point. My information today is more about, I guess, the more recent times, where I'll be educating you on. So really, the OTA space in the more modern era came about from What If. What If was sort of like the pioneer in this space. So throughout the 1990s and the early 2000s, that's when What If were really finding their feet, and they have a completely different look and feel now to what they had years ago. But it was the same basic principle where you were actually able to shop and compare the same hotels on the one platform. So as compared to old school where you're ringing individual hotels, to a little bit newer school where you're perhaps comparing websites, to a place where you can actually go to one website and actually compare side by side different hotels. That was sort of a massive game changer. But back in those days, commission rates were around sort of 8 to 10%, and more recently, we're now looking at anywhere commission rates are 12 to 15%, and you can even go beyond that and pay higher, as I may have mentioned earlier in another module, where you can actually increase your rankings by opting to pay a higher commission rate. So with that marketing spend mindset, it's not a terrible idea. So it might be something you want to explore there. So then after that, so when we're talking about online distribution, it's not just about OTAs. Okay, there's a few other things going on here. So there's the OTAs who are all around booking travel in the terms of accommodation, flights, even car rentals, that sort of thing. Some do all of that, some only do accommodation, some just do flights. But an online travel agent is basically the good old school Main Street travel agent turned into an online environment, and they may or may not sell the whole breadth of travel-related products, or they may just focus on accommodation. Like obviously, today we're really looking at the arm, and for the purpose of this course, we're looking at the arm that's focused around accommodation, but a lot of them do all of it. So there's the OTAs, but I guess the other third-party distribution channel that we can look at is all around review and reputation sites. And this all started out in around 2000 when TripAdvisor launched. And TripAdvisor was very early adopter of what they call user-generated content. And I'm hoping not teaching you how to suck eggs here, but the concept is simple. You know, you get real comments, real guest feedback, real guest experience, and put it into a platform that people can use and to make their decisions on whether to book something. So undoubtedly TripAdvisor has become very popular and is a dominant player in the travel space. But again, when it comes to online distribution, it's a great place to be, and we'll talk more about that later. But that started all around in the year 2000. The next extension of that was around in 2004, where you had meta search come into play when Kayak was launched. So I don't know whether some of you may or may not have heard of a mob called Kayak, Kayak.com. So Kayak is a meta search site, and what meta search is I'll try and explain this in simple terms. It's basically an automated robot that scans the web and finds hotels across all the platforms, across Booking.com, across Expedia, across What If, across all those different OTAs that are out there, and they consolidate every possible rate into one platform. So it's a further consolidation through an automated process that actually gives you a one-stop shop. So if you are really price sensitive and you just want to go, righto, where's the best hotel for the best price? And that's their advertising. When you think of Trivago's one of the other ones, and hotels combined. You know, these guys have really tried to even supersede the OTAs like Booking.com. So that's sort of been the evolution. So you've had OTAs doing putting up hotels, you've had reputation and review sites, then you've had meta-search sites come in and try and combine the whole thing together in an automated way through aggregation. Fast forward now to 2017, and there are now two dominant players in the market: Expedia and Priceline. And I'm going to bring up a graphic shortly about that. Expedia was established in 1996, and Priceline was established 2 years later in 1998. So again, those some of the pioneers in the early days of all this. And ultimately what's happened is, as we've progressed over the last near 20 years, they've become the two big boys. They've actually gobbled up a lot of the other ones. So it seems to be no sooner that a new OTA, a new booking platform is launched, that one of these players gobbles them up and buys them out, merges with them, or does some sort of activity to take their ownership and put them under their banner. So what we're seeing, like in Australia in particular, and you can see through the graphic, that in Australia 90% of all OTA bookings actually occur under one of those two banners. So under the Expedia group, and you can see there on the graphic that there's a whole bunch of OTAs and meta-search sites that fit under there, and then you've got the Priceline group. And so under each of those banners there's a mix of both OTAs, online travel agents like Booking.com, like Wotif, as well as the meta-search sites. So they're owning that whole space. Outside of that 90%, definitely there are still other players. And I'm putting up a couple of the examples there. So EasyBed, Need It Now, and LateRooms.com. They're some of the other players that are more independent of those big conglomerates. So the key takeaway from Who's Who in the Zoo, the hack, the 80-20 that you can jump on today, is that if you're thinking about listing on OTAs, all you really need to do to get started is list on those two. List with, well, in fact, if you just go and list with Booking.com, who's owned by Priceline, it will populate you on Priceline and Kayak and so on and so forth. If you then go and list on Expedia, it will also populate you on Wotif and what's the other one, hotels.com. Or all of a sudden you'll be populating out on all those platforms. Not every single one. Like as an example, if you go on Booking.com, you don't automatically go on Agoda. So there's some differences there, and we've got some frameworks later that will actually help you understand that landscape. But that's the cheat sheet. That's the takeaway, where if you just go and list on Booking.com and Expedia, you will be present in an online environment through the OTAs on a large percentage of the platforms that are available. So we encourage you to take that step if you haven't taken it already.